So this is the first question from Adam. He says, can you explain the difference between keys and backup phrases, 12 or 24 words, and in words that future Bitcoiners will understand? Yeah, so essentially what happens there is that every time you set up a new Bitcoin wallet, you get a public and a private key pair. And essentially what this new BIP, I think it's BIP 39. I should double check that quickly so I'm getting the right information here. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but basically what the BIPs are is Bitcoin improvement proposals. And so that's I don't know how many we're at now, but that's essentially a way to make Bitcoin better and easier for people to use, the Bitcoin BIP, the BIPs. And so essentially what this one did is it took the back or the private key and it converted it from a long string of numbers and words into 12 words or 24 words. So I got an email here. This is actually from our friend James Bond, who's sometimes in the chat, not today. But this is an email he sent me a little while ago, and I referred to it this morning because it has some really good information here. So it says, instead of generating a giant number that nobody can read, the BIP 39 generates 12 or 24 words from a dictionary out of 2,048 words that represent that private key. So that's essentially what it did. It took this very long phrase, or I guess you'd say a phrase, and it converts it into 12 or 24 word backup phrase. And so there's 2,048 words that make up all these different private keys. And that's what you have. Every time you create a wallet, you have the 12 words, you have the 24 words, and that's how you restore your wallet. So if something were to ever happen to your device, whether it's your phone that you're using for your Bitcoin wallet, or like a cold card, or a Blockstream Jade, a Trezor, anything, if you happen to lose that, or if it gets destroyed, you can simply use these 12 or 24 words, type them into a new wallet, and it will bring up your Bitcoin balance, and you can spend your Bitcoin. So essentially there, if anybody else has access to your backup phrase, your 12 or 24 words, then they essentially own your Bitcoin because they have access to your wallet and they have the ability to move that Bitcoin out of that wallet. So that's essentially what the backup phrase there is. In terms of like choosing a 12 or 24 word phrase, that's the next part of this email that I wanted to share because it's pretty interesting. So it says that, I'll maybe just bring this up so it's a little bit easier to follow. So it says that it gives us possible combinations for 12 word seed phrases of 10 to the power of 39. I think that's what it is. And then possible combinations for a 24 word seed phrase is 10 to the power of 79. So to put those numbers into context, the grains of sand on Earth is 10 to the power of 18. And the stars in the universe is 10 to the power of 23. So it says it would be easier for you to find a grain of sand that I hid somewhere on Earth than to guess a 12-word seed phrase. So that's kind of the idea with the backup phrases and the randomness of these 2,048 words, is that it's pretty much impossible for somebody just to guess it. So then it keeps going though. It says that, and this was interesting to me. It says that a 24-word seed phrase is safer because the number is bigger, right? And it says theoretically, yes, but in practice, it turns out maybe not. So then it gets into the wallets and how they generate the key phrases or the backup phrases. And it basically says that at the end of the day, it says that you should be using 12 words. That's their conclusion here. And it says basically because of it says the reality is that in production, 12-word seed phrases are just as cryptographically secure as 24-word seed phrases. And number two, it's more likely that you lose your crypto by making a mistake than somebody hacking your seed phrase. So it's basically saying that you should use 12-word backup phrases just because it's easier to memorize. There's less that can go wrong. If you think about it, and I think that a lot of people should be checking on this. If you go to read your seed phrase, if you had your wife or your son, your daughter, read your seed phrase, your backup phrase, Could they read the words on there? I know a lot of people have very messy handwriting, and obviously we don't want to be putting these on anything digital where you could type it. So a lot of people have messy handwriting, and I think that their backup phrases, their family members or whoever's about to retrieve their Bitcoin would have a very hard time reading some of the words. So it's basically saying that the 24-word backup phrase is more secure, but it's almost over the top secure because you don't really need that much randomness there. That's what it's saying. But it's also saying that because of that, you should consider using a 12-word phrase because there's less that can go wrong there. If you have 12 words written down, there might be 1 or 2 words that somebody has trouble reading and typing into a restore wallet. But if you have 24 words there's more that can go wrong. You could spell something wrong. There's just more variables there, right? So it's suggesting to use a 12-word seed phrase where possible. What I would say on that is that I think for the most part, depending on how your security setup is, for me personally, I mean, I don't love talking about my security setup live on the air, but just for me personally, I have the majority of my Bitcoin across a couple different multi-signature setups, and those all have 24 words in them. So I have a seed plate somewhere that's not obviously sitting in my house, and with that, it has the 12 on the front, the 12 on the back. So that's my 24 words. And you can punch them in there. So if something were to ever happen to the paper in your house or your safe got stolen, you still have your steel there. And so with the 24 words, I think that the reason I did that is because you can do a few more things with the cold card with 24 words than you can with the 12. But for all the other wallets I have, it's just 12 words. And I've talked about kind of having like a doomsday wallet. I would put that 12 words as well, because you can much more think about trying to memorize 12 words. That's hard enough. But then compare that to 24 words. If you tried to memorize 24 words, I think you'd be in some trouble there. So in terms of like your main stack, you could either use 12 or 24, depending on what you want to do and depending on the different features you want to utilize in your device. But for the most part, I would agree with this. And I would say that 12 words is more than sufficient for a backup phrase. So every time you set up a new wallet, a new device, you get the choice between 12 and 24 words for the most part, if you're using a good wallet. So that's what I would say on that, is I would stick to 12 words. It's easier to memorize. There's less that can go wrong. And you don't really get much more security from the 24 words. So that's what I would say on that, Adam. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense.